Welcome, everybody, yet to another live. Okay, now I've come across something very interesting, and I think you might like it. But it's about something strange and initially maybe scary in the beginning, but I guarantee you that if you stick with me, we might end up on an optimistic note. So, the Doomsday Clock. Peter Thiel and his idea on whether humanity will survive or not. Biosphere homes for Mars in case the Earth becomes inhabitable. Humanity, and what does all of this mean for ordinary people, for your relationships, and for families? Welcome to Pokes on Relationships. Here we speak everything relationships. And from time to time, I do like to ask philosophical questions about how what is going on in the world impacts the everyday to day person, but more specifically, how it impacts our relationships and how we relate with each other. What does this mean for families? What does it mean for future generations? So let's dive straight into it. I came across this fascinating thing called the Doomsday Clock. And granted, it's been around for a while, but as I started digging deeper into it, I started thinking, hey, why aren't more ordinary people aware of this and concerned about it? And more than that, why aren't we thinking about how this affects our day to day life? And when I realized, when I came across the Doomsday Clock, it turns out that right now is the closest it has ever been to midnight than it has ever been at any time in humanity. And what if the most dangerous signal about humanity's future is actually not AI, it isn't war, it isn't climate change, but that it's something strange that has shifted, that has happened? I mean, because the Doomsday Clock now is closer more than ever, subconsciously, people are asking themselves, is it worth it to build anything that will last anymore? But what's interesting about this question is that it's not just ordinary people asking this, elite people are also asking this question. And so the real thing that we need to consider is not necessarily whether we are heading for doomsday, but what happens when the most powerful people in the world who are involved in policy making, decision making, the shaping the world that we're living in, are not planning for Earth at all. Okay, so I'm going to share this video with you about this doomsday clock that for me, I thought was pretty interesting. And let's discuss this a little bit more about how this can affect our everyday to day life. Hopefully you can see it, and here we go.
It is now 85 seconds to midnight. It is the determination of the Bulletin's Science and Security Board that humanity has not made sufficient progress on the existential risks that endanger us all.
Okay, so I'm going to pause and make some commentary here while it's going on. Humanity has not made progress essentially on the risks that face the world, okay? Largely risks that we created ourselves. Granted, we are the ones that created these risks, and she will go on to list some of these risks.
We thus move the clock forward. The Doomsday Clock is a tool for communicating how close we are to destroying the world with technologies of our own making.
That's so, I mean, every time I listen to this video over and over, at this particular point, I have to laugh. Okay, fair use, by the way, fair use. That we have not made enough progress about the technologies that is basically that's dangerous for humanity that we've created ourselves.
The risks we face from nuclear weapons, climate change, and disruptive technology.
Disruptive technologies. And these disruptive technologies, this doomsday clock was moved closer to midnight right after the inception of AI, and dare I say, AI chatbots and AI relationships and husbands and wives. Scientists are saying that, look, there's a real problem here in humanity. So I guess I'm not the only one. I guess I'm not the only one that's concerned about this.
Are all growing. Every second counts, and we are running out of time.
Every second counts, and we are running out of time. And that's very interesting that that was shared. Because here's what this signals. Here's for me when I read this when I watch this Doomsday Clock and I find out more about it. It's okay. So it was essentially a clock that was created by scientists. Sometimes just might bear with me. I do look down sometimes for notes so that I don't ramble and bore all of you. But like, it was maintained by scientists and it's maintained by policy experts who track nuclear risks, who track, as she shared in the video, technologies that are made by human beings ourselves. It's also tracking climate change, instability, biological threats, and emerging technologies like AI. This is very interesting. AI is considered something that is a threat to humanity. And I mean, again, I like to always balance these conversations. I'm not against AI. I will keep saying that I'm not against AI. I think that when we come up with tools as human beings, when we create things, it should serve humanity, not sideline us, not work against us. Granted, you will not make everybody happy, and there will always be collateral in situations where things are disruptive and move humanity forward. But this particular technology, and I think especially social media and now has been a prelude to AI, is something I am particularly concerned about because it's starting to invade spaces and it's starting to replace things that I think inherently make us human, like human connection, like love. And those are the type of things where when technology starts to replace that, I'm concerned because, as I've shared in other videos as well, industries and countries that were very fast paced with technology and were priding themselves with being the leaders of cutting edge technology are now currently facing population decline. So I'm seeing that there's a direct correlation between technologies that are supposed to serve human beings, but that end up replacing human essence, end up in replacing human beings entirely. And I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree if technology that is created leads us down that trajectory, whether it's necessarily a good thing all the time. But when the clock moves closer to midnight, it's not because the public is panicking. And I don't like to be a sayer. I don't necessarily subscribe to panic, but I do subscribe to discretion. I do subscribe to planning. I do subscribe to wisdom and, understanding and discerning the times that we're in, and then planning appropriately for it so that you're not left behind. Because whether we like it or not, these technologies are there. Okay, these things are going to happen and they're accelerating and they're not slowing down. And yes, there are things that we as human beings can do to prepare ourselves so that we don't find ourselves wanting in situations that are not favorable and conducive to us as a human race. And when these doomsday clock, when they come and they make an announcement that they're moving it closer to midnight, it's really because people inside the system, like for example, the defense system, people who are involved in science, like some time ago, during when Oppenheimer created what he did, they created this doomsday clock. And so people who are involved in these technologies, people who are involved in nuclear weapons formation, people who are involved in policy, right? When politicians um, are coming together and saying that, look, we have an issue here, that's because they're the ones that are at the forefront of geopolitical relations, geopolitical conversations, and they are also at the forefront of knowing where other countries are at in terms of their nuclear advancement, in terms of their approach to humanity as well. And so when all of these groups collectively come together and say, we're in trouble now, it really means that they believe that our margin for error is shrinking as a human race. And as of now, as of recording this video, it was 90 seconds to midnight. So there are two responses to this. And these are the two responses that I'm seeing a lot in this particular scenario. That the number one is that there's insurance, right? We protect life just in case. We back up civilization like a hard drive. So that's where cloning is coming in. That's where we're finding people cloning tissues, human cloning. We're taking cells from animals right now that could potentially go extinct. We are cloning human kidney cells, and we are conducting all these experiments to one day save the human race in case this earth becomes inhabitable. So that's what we're doing, right? We're literally backing up civilization like a hard drive. We also then preserve knowledge, right, until things stabilize. And I think this story is hopeful. And then there's the other one. There's the other approach, which is exit. Just zip on up out of this world into Mars, literally into Mars. Actually, that is what those who have the means to are planning. They are looking at other planets to see if it's potentially habitable in case we screw up this one. Wow. So, what happens when people start having that kind of mindset? A couple of things start to happen, right? We stop trying to save everyone because it's self-preservation, survival of the fittest. When we have something, we want to keep it. Survival becomes selective. It's not a shared thing. It doesn't become about, oh, let us all help and share the human race. It becomes about, nah, I have the means. I'm out of here. You sort yourself out. And I think this story is far more dangerous. And unfortunately, from what I'm gleaning, it looks like this is literally what's happening right now. And because once the elites believe that the future is no longer shared, the social contract quietly dissolves. And I'm going to share this particular interview that I came across because then it got me wondering, what is the big fear right now? It really
Is Silicon Valley reckless?
I'm going to just forward it straight to the position that I really wanted us to talk about. And sometimes we think that, oh, these people live in another world and they're just afraid and they want to go. But I ask myself this question: should we be worried if they start building bunkers? Is there something they know that we don't know? And well, I wanted this interview that it was by Peter Thiel, and he was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked a question which I thought the answer should have been pretty simple, but apparently it was not simple. It wasn't straightforward according to Peter Thiel. Let me see. Yay, it showed. All right. So there's this whole conversation. It's by The Opinion. Shout out to The Opinion. And they have just this conversation, and there are a number of questions that are thrown out in these conversations. And I mean, the truth is, I always find it interesting when I watch interviews by a lot of these wealthy individuals. Sometimes it just seems like we're just living in completely different worlds. But I do like to listen to what they're saying, because at the end of the day, they are creating technologies that are shaping our world, whether we like it or not. They're also in extremely influential positions, making decisions that affect every single day people. And I think that it's important for you to really pay attention to their conviction, their philosophy, their belief system, what they believe, because it's not about just what they believe, that, they keep it to themselves. What I think is that their conviction plays itself out very much in the technologies that they make. It plays itself out in the algorithms that are created. For example, I shared in yesterday's live how we can see very strongly neoclassical theory playing itself out in technologies that are being used by insurance companies. And some of these convictions and some of these ideals don't, at first blush, don't seem to serve humanity or err in favor of humanity. It always comes across as punitive, and very much not in support of just the everyday people. But I could be wrong. Perhaps you disagree with me. Let me know if you disagree with me. I'd be interested to find out why. But I wanted to share this particular portion of the interview, which I found pretty interesting. Now, there were a lot of other questions that were asked, but this is the part that I want to drive home in terms of what I want to discuss about today. So have a listen.
With people who, at the very least, seem to have a more utopian, transformative, whatever word you want to call it, view of the technology than you're expressing here, right? And you were mentioned earlier the idea that the modern world used to promise radical life extension and doesn't anymore. It seems very clear to me that a number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh, and either some kind of creation of a successor species or some kind of merger of mind and machine. And do you think that's just all kind of irrelevant fantasy? Or do you think it's just hype? Do you think people are trying to raise money by pretending that we're going to build a machine god, right? Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation.
That is a long hesitation. That is a long hesitation. Simple question. You would prefer that the human race endures. Okay.
Long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Should the human race survive? Yes, of course. Why the hesitation?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting to find out, what some of the most influential people believe in. I'm just going to get the next video ready. Hopefully it doesn't shout it.
Because this
here.
exact biosphere
Probably did. I'm sorry about that. But I just wanted it to be ready because I didn't want it to not play when I'm ready to get to that part. So should the human race survive? I would have thought that was a pretty quick answer. Yes, the human race should have survived, and then perhaps take time to then elaborate a bit further on your point. But no. And I think for me, what I caught here, and I could be wrong, but then this is my interpretation, and this is what I genuinely feel is happening, is that we started off with the Doomsday Clock. Okay, so I'm coming full circle. We started off with the Doomsday Clock. And that is essentially telling us that, hey, humans, we're about to self-destruct and destroy ourselves here. So let's get our acts together. Geopolitically, we need to get together with other countries. We need to make sure that our relationships are good. Good. I think that's a good thing. Then we have, I would say, some of the most powerful, influential people in the world who are like, oh no, we don't believe that the human race is worth fighting for anymore. So we're just going to build homes and we're just going to find life on another planet. And I mean, I think exploration is good. We are creative beings. We like imagination and we have all these wild ideas as human beings. But when the elite start planning to escape this world that we live in, I sit up because I'm like, okay, well, what do you know that we don't know? And here's where things get uncomfortable for me. At the moment, the clock is moving closer to midnight. A new pattern has emerged among elites. They're no longer speaking primarily about repair. We're no longer hearing repair. I mean, okay, at least, and let me be fair, he did say that he would like us to fix these issues. Fair enough. But the majority, most of the time, is they're not speaking repair. They're not speaking redundancy. No, sorry, excuse me. They are speaking redundancy. They're speaking biospheres, seed vaults, bunkers, off-world colonies, digital consciousness, AI, continuity, a world that doesn't seem conducive for human beings to exist in. Well, at least let me say everyday people, right? And honestly, this isn't science fiction, you guys. It's what is happening is like, for me, it's like the mentality of portfolio logic hedging, except it's not hedging against your investments and your stocks. It's hedging against civilization. It's hedging against this world that we live in. And increasingly, more and more elites are hedging against Earth itself. And if you think that I'm making all of this up, I recently came across another video that was just released, right, yesterday or the day before, about biospheres, homes that have been crafted and built and are designed to be exported to another planet in case Earth becomes, I actually literally wrote it down, in case the world becomes inhabitable. This is so wild to me. In case Earth becomes inhabitable, but I wanted to show it to you so you could see it for yourself. This biosphere home that is literally being built. Let me see. There we go. I will play it so you can hear it for yourself.
Here could be our future home on Mars. Surviving there means it needs to produce its own oxygen, water.
Your future home on Mars. Literally, guys, how many people are actually going to be able to afford to get a future home in Mars? Like, who's going to survive if this world does become inhabitable? It's clearly a select few. And that's why I think that, yes, it's just world, it's survival of the fittest. But I do not underestimate ordinary people. I think we are so powerful and so amazing as a creation, as a human race. I always say we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And honestly, I think quite simply, at the very core, the first step to solving a lot of humanity's problems is strong relationships. Strong relationships, the unit, the family structure, the family unit. And then outside of the family unit, then our immediate community. And then within our immediate community, the broader community. Because we've seen that when people come together, you don't have to be a lot. But if we just share the common goal and we are determined to just not get left behind or not get sidelined by technologies that are essentially replacing human essence, I think that we will be able to survive as a human race. And it all starts with relationship. Two, well, the good two is better than one. If it's too toxic, then no, it's not good. But obviously, when I'm speaking about strong relationships. I'm not speaking about toxic, bad relationships. But here, let me play it on.
And self-sustaining food source.
Come on in, boys. Make sure you seal the door behind you. We are now sealed inside the biosphere, which means we can take these suits off.
Because this exact biosphere could be our future home on Mars.
Yes, except a biosphere that could be a future home on Mars. I can't get over that line. It's so bizarre to me. But you know, it makes me also think. It makes me realize that I should start thinking, okay, well, I'm probably not going to be able to have to afford to buy a biosphere, at least not right now. Who knows, maybe in future, but a biosphere home in Mars. And the majority of us aren't going to. And this Earth and human beings is all we have. So we might as well make it work. We might as well start liking each other and start reaching out for each other again. And I, the more I dig deeper in just how the world is going, you could decide it in two ways. You could either become very bleak and very pessimistic and discouraged and say, well, we suck as human beings and we suck as the human race. Or you could be optimistic because we are resilient creatures. But, you know, when I look at how especially also modern society is going, and what has happened in societies that have been modernized for some time. Like in the previous episode, I spoke about Japan that is experiencing population decline, Europe that is just having entire villages empty out. Realizing more and more that sometimes when we think that we're becoming more technologically advanced, when we think that we're becoming leaders in cutting edge technology, that essentially we are just destroying ourselves. And when I'm speaking of countries that are fast approaching population decline to an extent where it might be beyond repair, I am saying that, look, we don't have to end up there. We already know nations that have gone ahead and have ended up there. And what they're trying to drastically do right now to combat that is to create an environment that's conducive again for people to get together, get married, have children, have families. And so I'm like, okay, well, they've made that mistake. Why don't we just learn from them and just start fixing our relationships right now? Why don't we just, instead of reaching out for technology, why don't we just solve the deeper lying issues, which is loneliness epidemics, which is just connection. Right now, if we know that a lot of our unstructured spaces have been removed away, there are a lot of things have changed. People work from home. People don't want to go back into the workplace, perhaps because it was just not as fun and it wasn't conducive and it was toxic. And I hear all of that. People want to spend more time with their families and people want to spend more time at home. So since that's where population and civilization has gone to, instead of creating technology to replace that, why don't we just fix it? I know it's easier said than done, but the issue is that we're not thinking about fixing it. We're just thinking escape, and we're thinking escape. And it's not just everybody that's thinking escape. The elites are thinking escape. And, here's the principle that I keep coming back to. People start feeling and thinking escape when they feel like the systems are fragile. And so people plan for exits. But when it's stable and, when it's conducive for human relationship, for human love, then people plan for stewardship. And, this particular interview with Peter Thiel, and I've played other portions of it in other videos, but it's a very telling interview. It's quite interesting. I know a lot of comments. I'm going to read one of the comments just now, actually, from one of that video. But essentially, I think what I'm getting from it and what is unsettling for me from that interview specifically is not necessarily that he's calling for destruction. I mean, I didn't get that from some of his words. I didn't get that he's saying we should destroy the human race, although some would like to argue that he is with some of his products. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day. But I think, it's making me want to ask something deeper. Do we still want the world to endure? I think the deeper question is, have we quietly accepted and managed the decline, and there's now personal escape, right? Because I think for me, that question matters, because right now it's Peter Thiel and he's famous, and, people love to make a famous person a villain. But honestly, in our everyday to-day lives, individual people are also quietly checking out. It's not just him. It's not just billionaires. Because ideas like this don't just come from nowhere. And they emerge when people believe the systems are too broken to fix completely. And it's not something that is just only elite. And I think when people feel like the system is broken and they don't have trust in the system, it explains why so many people feel hesitant about long-term commitments. It explains why, and I shared again in another video when we were speaking about AI, right? Autonomous vehicles and AI just displacing jobs. And one of the very comments that was under the Reddit tweet was, and yet they want us to have kids. And this was just some random person that we don't know. And we can see the despair and the hopelessness trickling down to everyday people and trickling down to decisions that directly impact on and are absolutely essential for the continuation of human race, like getting together, procreating, and continuing humanity. Birth rates are collapsing, commitments is feeling risky, and long-term planning is starting to feel naive. And I get the sense a lot in modern societies, a lot of this in Europe, and also just, people asking, like, what is the point of investing so deeply if it feels so temporary? And I would like to say, yes, Earth, as human beings, Earth is temporary, but not to the extent that you give up completely. It saddens me that people are just having a sense of hopelessness about where humanity is at. And it can be if you're always focusing on, excuse me, the negative. But, but I have to say this, excuse me. Initially, I believe that creation was created for us and postured towards the world and stewardship, right? Not escape. Have dominion over this earth. Occupy this earth and be fruitful, multiply. That's what I believe what the mandate is and was, and not abandon creation when it gets hard. And so the whole concept of stewardship was to cultivate, to protect, to repair, in case we did make a mess, which we did. We've done quite a few silly things as human beings, but it was also built for the generations that you might never see. Don't just dump it and just think that, okay, well, I'm going to be out of here and good luck to the rest of you. We are here today because of what people before us built, what people before us fought for and believed in. And we owe it to the next generation to do the same. But, Techno Escape says, if it breaks, we'll leave, right? If you go back and listen to that whole interview, it's pretty fascinating. Where he speaks about how when he speaks to Elon Musk and he's like, oh, we got to get out of here. We got to go to Mars. And he makes mention, he's like, well, there is nowhere to go. And yeah, there is nowhere to go, guys. So we might as well make this place work. Okay, stewardship says, if it's broken, we repair, even when it costs us. We have to repair. Think of your children, think of your loved ones, think of the next generation who, I don't know, will not have the wherewithal to fight for some of the things that we have fought for and believed for. We owe it to them to really start thinking about human connection. The truth is this, I'm not so much concerned. To be honest, can I be honest? Okay, I'm going to be honest. I didn't hear you say yes, but I'm going to be honest anyway. I'm not really concerned about whether, elite or like whether the most powerful people stop believing in a shared future. I think they'll believe what they want to believe and they're entitled to that. And I can't stop that. But my concern and what I don't want, and yes, I am an optimistic, incurable optimist, is when ordinary people quietly also follow that same logic in their life. I don't want that. I don't want people to check out of this world, to check out of life. I don't want them to check out of marriages, to check out of relationships, families, faith. Because civilization doesn't collapse when threats appear. Throughout humanity, threats have appeared all the time, right? We've had extinctions, we've had animals go extinct, we've had certain types of human species, maybe not survive certain harsh conditions, but we are still here. Some of us, we are still here. And I think that humanity and the world only collapses when people stop believing that the future is not worth building together. That's where I take issue with that. I don't want us to stop. And so with that, I came across this very interesting this very interesting comment. I think that was under the video that I shared earlier. And I thought that, he had he was just venting, okay, so just let him be. But I'll highlight the parts that I actually agreed with him on. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's pretty small. Okay. I'll just make it a little bit lighter. But it said, just because they're billionaires doesn't make what they say true, just, or moral. I'm so tired of this culture of reverence we have for these lords of capitalism. They're robber barons, self-indulgent pirates bulldozing their way through the late stage days of capitalism the same way their predecessors did 120 years ago. Okay, that's his opinion, and he's venting. But I do want to take from there, just especially that line, 2 principles, is that, sometimes even if people have, the most powerful tools in the world, they're not always right. It's their opinion. It's their belief system. It's their conviction. Rightfully so, we should know. We should want to know what they believe, because what they believe is playing out in real time in our everyday life. But secondly, in that line, he also says their predecessors did 120 years ago, which tells me that there's nothing new under the sun. Our ancestors thought the world was ending, probably when the cars came and there were no more horses, and then they thought the world was ending when there were airplanes, and then there was the Industrial Revolution, and then thought the world was ending when there was technology and the .com, and now we're in AI. There is nothing new under the sun, and we are still here. Then he goes on to say, I, for one, do not want this opportunistic, self-serving mindset to keep controlling our society. We're better than this. This is where I think I agree with him. And not necessarily in relation to this video, but just to life in general. We are better than this. Humans, we're better than this. I know we're messy. We're better than this. Society deserves messages that elevate us out of these doldrums instead of keeping us stuck in them. And that is why I'm here, to encourage everybody that we can build strong relationships. We can really come full circle. I believe this AI thing is at least good for one thing, is that I think it will make us realize our ailment, how far we've come as a society, and how important human relationship is. And then he goes on to close, we will move beyond this and we will be better for it. And I think I'll just end it there. Thank you for joining me on this live. Let me know what your thoughts are on this fascinating doomsday clock. What your thoughts are on whether humanity should survive, and how we can build families again, how we can rebuild society again. Maybe it will not look the same as before, but it can actually be better. We are amazing as a human race. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. But let me know what your thoughts are. And until next time, thank you so much for joining me on this live.